Many communities have underrepresented in biomedical research, and therefore the advances that come from that research, so new drugs, biologics, vaccines, medical devices, they haven't always benefited the people from those communities, from all communities, as much as they could. And so really the goal of this program is to include everybody. Therefore the title, All of Us. And so as I just mentioned, all of us really aims to enroll at least 1 million people who reflect the diversity of the United States. And so this includes not just racial and ethnic populations, which is what many folks think of when they think about diversity, but it also includes sexual and gender minorities, seniors, those from rural communities, people with disabilities, and folks with lower education and socioeconomic status. And so the information that is collected and de-identified from these folks who join our program can in turn help to improve the ways to diagnose, prevent, and really treat health conditions that can hopefully lead to improved health for generations to come. And so really the goal of the program is to build one of the most diverse biomedical data resources of its kind that can be used by researchers to gain insights into the biological, the environmental, and the behavioral factors that influence health. It's really this complete picture of health, not just genes as many people often think about. And so if we really want to change this one-size-fits-all approach to healthcare and really the goal to advance health equity, we really need more diverse, equitable, and inclusive representation by medical research, and that's what All of Us is here to do.
I love that explanation and description. I like to tell people we're so focused on precision medicine, and I think what most people don't realize is that we need more data to get to precision medicine. So I really thank you for that description. And our first question for you, and our one burning question that we have, is around your database. You mentioned that you're looking at 1 million people and we're looking at diverse populations. So our question for you is, how will the NIH's All of Us database make a meaningful difference in the design of new clinical trials?
Yeah, really, really great question and super important question. And so before I get into the details of my response, I do want to level set with the audience about what All of Us is and it is not. So for starters, All of Us is a research program. It's not a clinical study or a clinical trial. And lots of people, I know you know that, but lots of people can sometimes confuse that. And so our program is designed to gather data from participants that will be de-identified for research purposes. So while clinical studies usually focus on a specific health condition, sometimes they're testing treatments or medications to see if they are safe and effective. But all of us we are collecting samples and data to make available to researchers to advance overall health research. And so, as I previously mentioned, the All of Us data set is really incredibly diverse. But why is that important? So several reasons, actually. First, where we live, how we live, and our background can all affect our health. And second, many groups of people, as I previously mentioned, have been left out of research in the past. This means researchers know less about their health. By studying data from a diverse group of people, researchers can learn more about what makes people sick or keeps them healthy. What researchers learn today could lead to better care for all of us in the future. And so when we think about clinical trials in particular, and clinical research, all of us, the goal is one of the goals is that we can serve as a technical resource in designing trials to gauge the prevalence of conditions or different genetic variants in a diverse population, to help uncover those inequities in the current standard of care, to test initial hypotheses, and really to understand the current medical trajectory of certain conditions, as well as I mentioned previously, the environmental and the social determinants of health that may factor into outcomes. And the other way that we can help with clinical trials and clinical research is, and I think we'll get into this later, is, we have obviously been very successful at enrolling a diverse cohort of participants within our program. And so this has not happened by accident. And so we certainly have best practices and ways of engaging communities that I'm happy to talk about later that we're happy to share with any researcher that may anticipate challenges enrolling diverse communities. And so really just sort of to wrap things up there, one of the founding principles of the All of Us program is to advance health equity and reduce health disparities. And again, that can only happen. The data set is super diverse, and so we're here to help with that in a number of ways.
Thank you for that answer, and I will say I love that you guys have that holistic view. I think many of us don't consider epigenetics and environment when we're looking at these things, and so really pulling that in is necessary. I wanted to talk for a minute. You talked about the enrolling, and that is a huge study that you are enrolling in, from 750,000 to 1 million people that we're looking at. How will the NIH maintain the enrollments and compliance with that many people with such different populations that you have? What are your strategies there?
Yeah, thanks for that. That's it's a really important question. And so, what we're really looking to do is something that has really never been done before, and certainly not on this scale, as you just alluded to, with 1 million participants. And so, since the program began, our focus has been on becoming one of the largest, most diverse health research resources available. So this really intentional focus has helped not only build a participant cohort that reflects the diversity of the U.S., but also seeks to address the barriers that have limited past efforts to do so. And so having this diverse cohort is incredibly important for all of us, and that's why the program is highly dedicated to community engagement. And so why engage communities? Why is that important? And one of our consortium members has said, there's really no substitute for the lived experience. And so community members, healthcare consumers, and patients, they all provide these unique and invaluable insights which make all aspects of care, research, and medical education more relevant, credible, and effective. And so to be really clear here, partnering with communities and grassroots community engagement, that is foundational to the program. And that's how we maintain, that's one of the ways that we maintain sort of this connection to our participants. And so to that end, we have built this national network of community organizations that will facilitate really 4 essential and unique components of active participant community outreach. And so that's outreach, engagement, recruitment, and retention. And so we rely on this network of our partners to help us develop novel and culturally appropriate ways to engage and develop trust in communities, as well as maintain these relationships over time. So since the beginning of the program, we selected these partners with UBR communities, and UBR stands for Underrepresented in Biomedical Research. So UBR, Underrepresented Biomedical Research. We selected these partners with these UBR communities in mind. And so what they do is they work collaboratively with us and with the communities to reach specific populations. And so all of these organizations sort of come together to form what we call our engagement ecosystem. And so sort of reflective of our core values, we also often look to these partner organizations as really true partners and experts with their communities. And we often ask them to work with us on developing tailored strategies and assets to connect with them. So, for example, through these partnerships, we've been able to create safe spaces for important conversations about history, such as the story of Henrietta Lacks and the U.S. Public Health Service study at Tuskegee. And so we really want to provide potential participants with information that allows them to make a choice about contributing to a health database that will be used for medical research. And so really when you think about it, this network of community and provider organizations, we're working every day with our communities to help facilitate these important conversations. So for example, our partnership with the American Association of Health and Disability, combined with our mobile engagement asset, which is our traveling mobile exhibit and trailer, they've allowed us to connect to the disability community, really to meet folks where they are, especially if they can't come to us. Also, through our partnerships with the National Baptist Convention USA, we were able to leverage the togetherness of the Black faith-based community to engage with that community. And the final sort of pillar that I want to talk about, as part of our engagement strategy, are our participant ambassadors. So participant ambassadors, what they do is they provide input on the overall engagement strategies for the All of Us research program. And they have the option to serve on various governance groups and attend our annual in-person meeting. So some of the ways participant ambassadors, they engage with our program, is that they participate in monthly meetings. They provide feedback and input on all those activities and priorities. They also help to identify ways to make the program relevant to participants by identifying challenges, barriers, and opportunities. They also serve on governance committees, boards, task forces, such as our steering committee, our advisory panel, and our executive committee. They have the ability to suggest new activities, including participant-led projects. And this is all critical to the cohesive, the longitudinal design of the program. And so, all these strategies that I've talked about with you today, this is all something that we are actively working on, and we by no means are the authority on this, but it's something that we are working on together with our participants and our researchers, and it's continually changing as we learn from our practices and ways to improve on how to engage our participant community.
I love all of what you said, and I want to say a lot of the people in this room struggle with enrollment and engagement and retention, and you have found a way to really connect with communities, which I think is extremely valuable and helpful. And like you mentioned, you have patient advocates and participants who are involved in many different levels in the program, anywhere from those planning committees that are on all the way down to in-person meetings and just engaging with their communities. So I want to thank you in the way that you're working to engage communities. I want to open it up really quick to some of my other mods that are on the stage, because I know that some of them may have some questions. Does anyone want to step in? I know Michael has to leave early, so before I move in, I want to answer some of your questions. Anyone?
I have a question. This is Taya Romero, and I was looking at the website, and it was talking about the biobank. Could you give us a little more information on how the biobank works, and is it a sponsor-volunteer program where the sponsors or the drug companies volunteer the samples, or is it more patient volunteering their samples, and then how long are those samples stored?
Yeah, so great question. So the way the All of Us research program works is that participants sign up for the program, and then they have the option to donate a number of pieces of data types. So this can include a biosample, so blood, urine, or saliva. It can include survey responses, Fitbit data. They can link their electronic health records to the program. And so really we have all these different data types. And the goal of this is to provide a complete picture of someone's health, because we know that someone's health is not just tied to biology or genetics. There's so many more factors there. But for the biologicals aspect, the bio aspect, those samples that are in the program, so again, blood, urine, saliva, are stored at what we call our biobank, which is run at the Mayo Clinic, and so from these samples, they go through a various quality control process, and then they are used to perform genomic analyses for our participants. So, we do what are called whole genome sequences for them. So we get at the most basic level, you can think about it as sort of what the Human Genome Project did, providing the full sequence for the human genome. We do something similar for each individual person. And so this allows us to do a number of things. One, it allows us to have that genomic data, but it also allows us to return value to our participants. So one of the ways we do that is providing them information back about their ancestry and their health. So for example, as I just mentioned, we can provide, based on the genomic data, if they choose to provide a biosample, we can provide what we call ancestry return of results. So information about where your ancestors came from, similar to many of the commercial products that are out there on the market. And then early last year, we started returning DNA-based or health-related return of information. And so what this has done is it's two reports. So the first report is called Medicine and Your DNA. And what this report does is it lets participants know how their biology may or may not react to a specific set of medications based on their genetics. The second report is called a hereditary disease risk report. And so what that does is it's a set of about 60 or so genes that have known biological consequences. So, for example, the BRCA1 or the BRCA2 gene. And so if participants want to know, we can tell them if they have a pathogenic result for either of those two genes and 50-something more other genes that are known to have a hereditary disease risk. Importantly, we also we don't want to leave our participants, just sort of hanging. So, for example, if someone receives a pathogenic result, we're not just going to give that result to them and say, "Here you go, good luck, see ya." Like, that's not what we're about. We're about health equity, and so one of the important aspects to that is that if someone does receive a pathogenic result, the only way they can view that is in the presence of a certified genetic counselor, which we provide free of charge to both folks who do receive a pathogenic result and those that do not. And so this certified genetic counselor can help someone make sense of their genetic results and provide guidance and counseling on potential next steps for that person. And so this is all enabled, to get back to your original question, through use of through the biobank that stores these samples of blood, urine, and saliva for us. And these samples are kept indefinitely unless the participant tells us that they wish to withdraw from the program, in which case we will destroy the sample at their request. So again, this is part of what we want to convey, that participating in this program is a choice, and we want to make it as easy as possible for participants to join if they so choose, and if at any point they want to leave, we absolutely respect that request, and we will do everything in our power to accommodate it.
I hope that answered your question, Taya. I do see Emily and Amanda have your hands raised, but I want to ask you one more question, Martin, before we go to them. So this is around the diversity in this biobank that you have. With 45% of all of us enrollees being from typically underrepresented patient cohorts, is this an overrepresentation and equally data skewing when we're looking at this data?
Yeah, that's a really important question. I'm glad you asked it. So when we talk about data skewing, one of the biggest reasons for that is only having certain types of data available to do research on, whether that's just genomic or DNA data or just electronic health records. But all of us is really looking to change that. So here's how. So historically, the data needed to paint a complete picture came apart. Biological, environmental, behavioral, and socio-demographic. It's not been easy to capture all in one place. And so what the All of Us research program is doing is we're bringing this data together on a single platform and working to ensure it's not only secure and protected, but it's also made available to diverse researchers across a wide range of settings, particularly those that come from or live within the underrepresented communities that bear a disproportionate burden of disease. So data captured by the program, as I previously mentioned, includes survey responses, physical measurements, biosamples, as we just talked about, electronic health records, data from wearables, and genomic data. And so the All of Us data set, what it does is it follows participants as they move, as they age, as they develop relationships, as they get sick, and as they try treatments. The other way, the second way that you mitigate potential biases is by making sure your data set is super diverse. So as far as the All of Us data set goes, so we have more than 470,000 participants who have completed the initial steps of the program. And as you just mentioned, Kristen, more than 45% of all participants, they self-identify with a racial or ethnic minority group, as you mentioned. But also, 80% of our cohort identifies with a community historically underrepresented in environmental research. So there's that term UBR, a UBR community. And so this includes sexual gender minorities, those with lower incomes, education levels below high school, rural populations, those with challenges accessing healthcare, folks with disabilities, and elderly populations. And then the final way we address biases is through the researchers themselves. So specifically, we have targeted efforts to increase the diversity of those accessing the All of Us data set. This is because data has shown the teams inclusive of diverse perspectives are more likely to produce impactful studies. So the program is really committed to increasing diversity in researchers on our research workbench in terms of demographics, career level, and institution type to generate outcomes that return the greatest value to our participant communities, particularly those from UBR communities. And so what we do is we encourage students and early career investigators to bring diverse perspectives and help propel this really these innovative research outcomes in addition to helping support their careers. And so what happens is when you have researchers, from diverse institutions and organization types, that will help build, this equitable resource with diversity on both sides of research at all levels. So currently we have over 6,300 registered researchers with the program. And so they are working on more than 5,700 projects on our researcher workbench, which is where our data is accessed. And over 200 publications have been produced using program data. And so these researchers come from more than 545 institutions, include academic institutions, federal entities, healthcare organizations, and nonprofits. And of these institutions, almost 40 are from historically black colleges and universities, and almost 50 are from Hispanic serving institutions. All this is really to say that if we want to change really this one-size-fits-all approach to healthcare and really advance health equity as our ultimate goal, we need more diverse representation in medical research, both on the participant and on the researcher side. And so as you mentioned, where possible, we are looking to overrepresent many communities that have been underrepresented in biomedical research to ensure really these adequate sample sizes are there, that those are available to power the broad range of studies researchers investigate using the All of Us researcher workbench data set. And again, this is where researchers can access our data and conduct research on our workbench.
Thank you for that. Any other, I'm starting to bring people up into the audience because I really want to give you all an opportunity to ask your questions of the All of Us program. and not just my questions since I'm familiar with the program. So if there's anyone else before I get to Emily and Amanda, any of my other mods have any questions?
I have two really quick questions. Tina, again. How do you then protect the patient privacy of all the data? And then second, is there a cost to access this database for researchers?
Yeah, so great question. So privacy is one of the core principles of the All-of-Us data set. And so we have a number of security protocols and an entire team dedicated to protecting privacy of the data. As you can imagine, the data is completely stripped of identifiers. When it is put into our database with only the highest level of security protocols and protections for this. We understand that when participants join our program, they are entrusting us with their personal information and their data, and we do not take that lightly at all. It is one of the most serious sort of acts that of trust that a participant can give to us, and so we absolutely make every effort to ensure that we respect that and do everything we can to protect their data. And then, please remind me, your second question was?
Is there a cost for the researchers to access the database?
So it's sort of a mixed response there. So when someone accesses the database, in order to access the database, right now it is limited to academic and nonprofit institutions. And so when someone, in order for someone to access that database, the institution needs to have a data use and research agreement with the All of Us Research Program. And so there are processes there to obtain one, and so that does not have a cost as far as I know. However, the researcher workbench is run off of a Google Cloud platform, I believe, and so in order to do research on the workbench, there is a cost there, and so we understand that, and so one of the things we do to help mitigate that cost is that every person who signs up for use of the workbench is offered $300 worth of credit free credit to conduct analyses on the workbench, and we have other programs in place for those that may go beyond their $300 credit. What we're trying to establish here is an equitable platform that allows that will allow many folks to sign up and then conduct analyses with as little financial impact as possible, for them, because we know not everyone has the resources of some of these major universities, and so we're always looking for ways to help our researchers to ensure that they are able to do the analyses that are of interest to them.
And I want to comment really quick around the data privacy and security. I want to thank you guys at the program for including patients on those boards. I am a member of the Committee for Access, Privacy, and Security around the patient data, and there is one other patient on that board with me. So having us on that, where our data and privacy is concerned, is also extremely appreciated. Any other questions from any of my co-mods before I move on to Emily?
This is Jennifer. I have a simple, easy operational question. I was trying to look through your protocol. How many sites are there? Is that how this is set up? That you have set sites throughout the country?
Yes. So we have ways to for folks to enroll in the program. So one of the major ways that folks are able to enroll are through healthcare provider organizations. And so we have made multiple awards to multiple providers throughout the country, regional medical centers, as well as federally qualified health centers, to enroll participants. So as they go for their annual physical or their or wellness checkup, many are provided with the opportunity to sign up for the program at the same time. And while they're there, they can choose to donate a biosample. If they choose to enroll in the program, they can choose to link their electronic health record while they're there at their provider. We have a number of sites across the country which are part of the various awardees, and so really our aim is to attempt to be able to enroll. We know we can't enroll everyone everywhere, but we want to be able to enroll anyone anywhere. And the other primary method of enrolling is through what we call self-guided participation. And so this is where you can simply go online, create an account, and that will walk you through the various steps for you to join the program, where you can donate a biosample, etc. As I alluded to earlier, earlier too in the discussion, we also have what we call our mobile engagement assets, our MEAs, which are traveling trailers that crisscross the country. So we have one for the West Coast, one for the East Coast, and one for the middle of the country. And so these go to various communities throughout the United States, and they are able to they spread the word about the program, and for most of them, they have the opportunity to, if someone wants to, they can join the program at that traveling exhibit. They can give blood, they can give urine, they can sign the consent form, they can answer some of the surveys. So it's really a full experience that they can get at these traveling exhibits. And so these are really the ways that someone is able to join the program.
And I love that you've covered both the digital aspects and then in person in the communities who aren't quite at that digital level either. Any of my other co-mods before Emily?
Yeah, real quick, Christine. I'd love to just jump in. Hey, Martin, my name is Scott Streeter. Thanks for joining us today, and thanks for sharing so much about this really awesome program. Just one quick question before we jump in into a little bit from the audience. You talked about, you used the word entrusted, and I can tell that you really prioritize and value partnership with patients, value privacy, this goal of increasing representation and increasing access. One of the sort of concepts I'm always thinking about with this is not only do we need to sort of meet people where they are and maybe go to non-traditional settings, but there's also this underlying issue of trust, right? And maybe overcoming some things historically that have occurred that haven't been so great, and representing sort of like the NIH and other groups. I'm just curious your thoughts there around how you build trust, how important that is to you with kind of connecting with your participants, and just it's kind of a bigger philosophical question, but curious if you could just share a couple of your thoughts around building trust with these communities as a way to help engage them.
Yeah, well, great to meet you, Scott, and thanks for that question. You bring up a super important point, and one that's, I think is one that's really foundational to the success of the All Disclosure Program in engaging and enrolling these diverse communities within the program. And so, this was what you just talked about was a consideration. It was a big consideration of the program right from its inception. And so one of the primary way that we've thought about this and we've addressed this is by creating what we call a division of engagement. And so what's unique about this division of engagement is that it is completely separate from our enrollment division. And so what that means is it's a division of engagement is specifically charged with not enrolling participants, but with engaging them and building those that trust that you just talked about. That is their sole purpose, to build those relationships and build up that trust. And so there are several ways that they do that. And so one of the ways is by having important conversations about history and acknowledging that and just being upfront about it. So, for example, earlier this year, our division of engagement held an event in Tuskegee, Alabama. And so there, it was not about, there wasn't even the option for someone to join the program if they wanted to. Instead, what the 2-day event focused on was having a conversation about exactly what happened in that town of Tuskegee, the U.S. Public Health Service study at Tuskegee, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, and having descendants from those men that were in that study talk about the impact on their families and exactly what happened there and why it was so wrong. We were also so fortunate to have relatives of Henrietta Lacks also join us to tell us how, what happened to their grandmother has affected their family. And so really just having these hard but necessary conversations about history is one of the ways we've done things. The other primary way is that, we certainly understand that we are a government institution and that there is, no matter how pure our motives are, there is going to be some level of distrust of the government. And, and we're also not so presumptuous to assume that we know these various communities and how to engage them. And so that's why, similar to how I talked about, we do awards to various sites for enrollment. We also do specific awards to community organizations, for engagement. And so we are of the mindset that these community organizations know their populations, know their communities the best. And so we let them be sort of our liaisons, our advocates for how to best engage their communities. And as I'm sure you can imagine, there is no one-size-fits-all. And so that's why we've funded dozens of community organizations, to engage the communities on our behalf. And, for us to learn from them, and again, to let them be sort of our gateway to the community.
Awesome. Thank you, Martin.
Scott, I was just going to say, I want everyone to listen to that part of it where these groups do know their communities and actively engaging them to build that trust is essential. Thank you, Scott, for that question. Michael, any questions before you have to take off?
Yeah, no, not a problem here. First of all, I want to, Martin, thank you so much for this. It's really a tutorial about all of us. And a lot of people don't realize that this program, really has been underway since the Obama administration. And the reality is that the data that will come from this is going to just be so impactful, especially when we get to the point of a longitudinal analysis. One of the things that I'm kind of curious about is, we've talked a great deal about trust. I think one of the enrollment complications with any clinical trial or any clinical registry is what will ultimately become of the data and how it will be used. And so I wanted to give you an opportunity to just kind of assure, you talked a little bit about the fact that at this point, data retrieval from this is only going to certain academic and institution sources. What can you share with the audience about commercial, industry, pharma, types of diagnostic companies, if they want access to even summarize data or aggregate data de-identified, is there a way for them to get to this? And if there is, what are you doing to manage that?
Yeah, thanks for that question. It's really important. So there's only a limited number of things I can say on this as far as commercial access goes. I can say that aggregate data, very high level aggregate data, is available to anybody, regardless of where they come from, whether that's a commercial institution or an academic institution, at researchallofus.org. And so that sort of gives sort of the high level overview of sort of what types of data and sort of the high level numbers of how many participants we have, what's the sort of demographic breakdown, for that. It is the sort of the higher levels of data access where you start getting to individual participant level data, genomic data, electronic health records that is more restricted to the academic folks at the moment. As far as commercial access goes, we recognize that this is something that has been asked for actually a couple of years now, and it is something we are actively working on. I don't have a timeline for you at the moment or too many specifics, but rest assured that this is something that is being worked on the highest levels of the program. We know it is something that the commercial community is asking for, and my ask is that you just stay tuned, and we hope to share more information, sometime in the future. But that's to say that this is something that we absolutely are working on, and we will provide more information as soon as we can.
Martin, thanks so much for that clarification, because I think there are a lot of us who do work on the commercial side of the industry who are very interested and recognize the inherent value of this, because this is probably one of the most unbiased approaches to collecting real-world evidence that's ever going to be done. And so we encourage it, and we certainly want to support this as best as possible, just as we are doing today on Clinical Trials OBQ. Thanks very much.
Yeah, message heard loud and clear.
Elizabeth, I see you unmiked. Do you have a question?
Well, first, just thank you very much, Dr. Mendoza, for sharing. My question is that dovetail off of my discussion, which is for equity participation on the individual side. I definitely heard you that there is value to the patient in the context of returning data that is useful to their own health, providing genetic counselors. All of that is fantastic, and particularly as you open the aperture and explore commercial interest, an area that the Consuli are very interested in how individuals get actively included in the important research findings and value that's created. While I appreciate that currently the academic setting and nonprofits are able to access the information, in reality, many fund innovation that then get commercialized, even in nonprofit institutes. So that's essentially best button tiers and data of participants. So I'd love your thoughts about how individuals eventually are also.
Yeah, I was having a little bit of trouble hearing you, but please correct me if I'm wrong. The question is, how will, aside from getting like their ancestry and their health data return results, how can individuals benefit from the All of Us research program?
Yes, very specifically, economically, as you're thinking about the future here on the commercial side and others. I'm sorry if I'm breaking up.
Yeah. So I would say we recognize that returning value to participants can come in a number of different ways. As I mentioned, some folks are really interested in getting their ancestry or their DNA results or hereditary disease risk results. But for other people, that may not be so motivating. And then I certainly hear you on, if we were to open up to commercial access, sort of where is the equity in there for the participants? And so that is things that we are actively working on. And so I don't have a super specific answer for you on that. I will offer, though, that along the theme of providing different forms of value to different participants based on their interests, another core pillar of the program are ancillary studies that we are currently developing. And so, it's still a work in progress, but eventually, we want to be able to offer our participants the ability to participate in other clinical, other research studies linked to the All of Us research program. And so, maybe someone wants to do a study on cancer or something involving all of us participants. And so, we're working a way through a process to provide participants a way that is not burdensome to them to participate in these sorts of other ancillary studies. And so hopefully more to come on that in the coming months and years, but figuring out how to provide value in different forms for participants is something that we are really passionate about here, and it's something we think about every day. Specifically, the question: how is any particular initiative or decision we make, how is it going to provide value back to our participants? So, similar to health equity, how are we advancing health equity with any particular decision? These are things that are always at the forefront of our conversations and things that guide our decision-making process. So, similar to the commercial question, I will just ask for just for you to stay tuned and for your patience with us, and we hope to share more in the future.
And these are a lot of issues that are going to take time for us to work through. So it's not expected for you to have any answers overnight, but I'm just glad that you are working on it. We have gotten so caught up in our conversation that we are almost out of time, and I do want to get to our 3 audience members. Actually, we had 4 who had questions. Emily, do you want to ask your question first, really quick?
Yeah, sure. I'll try to be fast.
Sorry.
No worries. I want to make time for the other folks too. So I'll ground my question in a really concrete example, but it's a broad question. So the broad question is, when you're dealing with underserved populations, are they even interested in research when their basic needs may not be met? And how do you satisfy, those two things? How do you reconcile those two things? So the grounded example to root it in is we're running an IBD study, decentralized, and we tried to do some outreach, and then we learned that this one underserved community, the feedback we got was, they're just thinking day to day, and it's inflammatory bowel disease, so they're just thinking, if they can find a bathroom. So how do you basically broaden these time horizons of thinking? Or is it just a non-starter? If their basic needs are not being met, are they not at all interested in research?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and one with I don't think a really clear answer. You bring up a really important point that sometimes or oftentimes if their basic needs aren't being met, then they may just not be interested in research. But I'll tell you how we sort of thought about this during COVID. So as I'm sure, as you can imagine, many communities were impacted by COVID, especially underrepresented communities, underserved communities, and so what we really did is we pivoted. So these were our friends, our participants, people who work in the community, and so one of the things we did was we really checked in on the community that we built. We sent out a survey to our participants to see how they were being impacted by the pandemic. So this was called the COVID-19 Participant Experience Survey, and it collected responses from more than 60,000 participants, covering topics from stress, mood, discrimination, social distancing, economic and work change, and others. And so what that did is it amounted to the biggest infusion of mental health data into our program so far. And so, but like many organizations, we had to adjust our day-to-day operations to a virtual sort of setting. And so prior to the pandemic, we had established a network of community partners and healthcare provider organizations across the country. So we pivoted from trying to enroll people in person to checking in, to calling our participants to see if they needed resources or information. Our community partners, they took the lead in providing information on local food banks. Then when vaccines became available, we provided information. We provided that information. In some situations, transportation. And then many also offered COVID-19 testing kits. And so really, there are challenges there. But my overall recommendation is to see what you and your organization can do to help meet their basic needs, to build that trust, as we discussed earlier, and so I think what we found is if we can build that trust and show that we are genuinely concerned about them, which we are, then they become more open to the idea of participating in research.
Thank you for that answer. And we are at 9:58. Amanda and Stephanie, I still have you on stage. Do you think you can throw in a question really quick?
Yes.
Go ahead, Amanda.
Yeah, I was curious of the due diligence that you guys are doing on collaborators in terms of, the data having access to insurance companies or associated institutions like Kaiser where they are a nonprofit. So I was just kind of wondering how that ties in of protecting information.
Yeah, so I'm probably not the best person to answer this question. It's not my exact area of expertise within the program. I will tell you again, the information is completely de-identified on our researcher workbench, and right now we are limited to academic and non-profit institutions. But if you leave your contact information with one of the moderators, I can certainly get you some more information on that.
I was just going to suggest the same thing, Amanda. We can get someone to answer your question. And Stephanie, if you have one more minute, you're up here.
It's kind of quick, but coming off of Ann Haynes as a field interviewer for the last several years, I will tell you, you guys are impressive. I've watched what you've done. I traveled the United States knocking on doors when they get those letters. I've been there. I've seen it. I'm hearing everything. I love that you guys are doing what you're doing. Would like to hear a little bit more about how you're working with the CBOs and nonprofits to try and get them engaged. What's the outreach like to them?
Yeah, so so this falls under our division of engagement, and so one of the things we do, similar to how we make awards to our enrollment partners, for enrolling participants, we have similar mechanisms for making awards to our community partners, community organizations, to facilitate this engagement work for us, and so there are different ways someone can become an engagement partner with us. As I mentioned, there is the formal sort of through funds, awards. We also have ways for that don't involve transfer of funds. So this is like our champions network, where someone can help to promote the program on their platforms if they so choose. So there's a number of ways, but once someone is a formal partner with us, we provide them with a number of resources and information, to help them, to support them in their outreach to their communities. And so, we have a number of ways that we do that.
And Stephanie, you can send me a message and I can hook you up with the people that are in charge of those community advocacy boards and stuff if you want to talk to them more. And we have one last question. I know that we are 1 minute behind. And Martin, if you don't mind, Kavita, you have one last question?
Thank you.